All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. And as you might notice, we're in different digs a little bit. Kind of looks like we're in a space studio, Dan.
Well, only if they're watching a video, because again, this is a podcast. It's an audio format first and foremost, but we are in the Blue Wire studios in Las Vegas for the first stop of the Chelsea Summer Tour, Nick.
It's sexy. There's no doubt about it. It is a delight. We look far more professional than we actually are, which, again, just for appearance's sake, isn't a bad thing for us.
I know about me. What about the studio? All right. Anyways, I'll bring it back. It's my own fault. Look, we are at the Blue Wire studio. Those of you know we are affiliated with Blue Wire. There are friends on the backside that kind of help everything come together for us, and they have this beautiful studio in Las Vegas, which we were able to take part in. And so you're going to get an exciting show here. And a part of it, we actually have some friends from Patreon that are actually here watching us live just on the other side of that wall. There's perks to being a part of the fam, huh, Dan?
Well, this is something that we wanted to do for a long time. Obviously there was the match that was going to happen that didn't happen, the Arsenal and Chelsea match in Las Vegas that we had initially planned with our friends at Blue Wire and with our community to do a live pod here last time. That didn't happen, so we're doing this one. We're doing this one here with a wonderful cast and crew of our wonderful supporters, and we want to thank them. And this is the way that we did that, Nick. And so we're excited to get into a little bit of the summer conversation because this pod's going to drop the day of the first preseason match, and we just want to cover off on a couple of important topics.
Yeah, we're doing this like an hour or two before we go to the Re-Raw for our live pod, which will inevitably be a far more drunk experience than this. But
it's because there's no open container rule in the
smart.
studio.
It's actually really smart.
Very smart.
Yeah, look, these guys are pros. They know what's going on. But yeah, shouts to Ishan, who is here, our lovely social media manager who has been on it all the time.
Elizabeth Busby, of course, as well.
Yep.
Head of security, the newest hire into the London is Blue family.
She's kicking ass and taking names. So this is a full team that we got going. It's awesome.
It is absolutely awesome. We're gonna have friends Matt Law and Nissar Kinslow with us as well throughout the weekend. Maybe even Simon Johnson, Adam Newsom. Just we're gonna be taking it all in. So we're glad you guys are here with us. A reminder: jump on Patreon. There are some cool stuff that we do throughout the year. Owen just added as well. We're excited to have Owen with us. We always want the Apple Pie 5-star reviews, the Spotify, aren't they 5-star as well?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you keep it simple. I thought Spotify maybe would try to do something different,
Hey,
but they didn't.
We know you've been off for a couple weeks, but come on.
It's been quite a few
He's
weeks.
rounding back into form, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. He's a N'Golo Kante after an injury.
Live in person. Well, you got to be careful comparing anyone to N'Golo Kante right now as he's sitting at home training with the reserves. Anyways,
yes.
And then obviously this is stop 1 of 3. We will be there throughout the entire tour. Charlotte up next, Orlando. We do have live pods there. So if you're going to be in one of those cities and you're looking to connect with us, hurry up and check out our socials because they are filling up very quickly. Vegas is full. Charlotte is almost full, and Orlando
Vegas
is
not entirely full. Let's just clarify.
Can we just talk about this?
Asterisk.
Okay, so we're putting all this work in. We're like, man, I hope people come out to these things. And
Nick Verlaney promoted it initially, and nobody signed up. But then Ishan did a good job of promoting it, and lots of people signed up.
My feelings are hurt. But at the end of the day, the result is that we have a ton of people who are going to come out and see us. And it's incredible. Like, you guys have made us feel amazing about this whole live pod experience. And it's something that I'm never going to forget because I think we're in for a real treat.
Yeah. 500 of our closest friends going to be hanging out with us through the entire tournament. But look, we could talk about all that stuff, or we could actually talk about a podcast, which is what we're here to do.
No, pass.
And it's been a little bit fun. We've had some signings. It sounds like Koulibaly is on his way to Vegas to come hang out with us as we speak.
Yeah.
Raheem Sterling did his photo shoot in L.A., did his goodbye to Man City fans to make it official. And apparently Good Vibes FC is returning. Todd Bowley is in the kitchen, Nick, cooking up a 7-course meal right now. And for all the fans that were anxious and ornery and were like, hurry up, he got Lukaku out of the way, and now they are just going at it with just one name at a time.
Yeah, I think it's a really important place to start, right? Because I understand, especially after the last 4 months of uncertainty, right? It was a pretty hectic time for Chelsea Football Club, why our supporters would be antsy, right? I think it's a fair enough point, too, because, Man City and Liverpool are already kind of taken off this summer. They already have their squads put together, and it felt like we were lagging behind a little bit. But to me, what the team is starting to do and what the ownership group is starting to do is much more of a cohesive plan than even I thought was going to be put together at this stage, because you have to remember that these guys are just starting to understand the club and staff that they're playing with and the organization, beyond just the playing staff, right, Dan? I mean, this is a large organization that they have to understand the ins and outs of, and it's already starting to pay dividends.
Well, you're seeing Chelsea go out and do all this co-branded content with the Dodgers. You're seeing Jorginho hit some dingers in the batting cages. The atmosphere that's carrying forward from their social media, which isn't always the truest reflection, so it is a little bit of the sanitized, like, this is what we want you to see, is extremely positive. And I think everything we're reading from our friends Matt and Naz, from Simon, is that the mood is positive. When you see Malang Sarr and Raheem Sterling having a conversation about, so are you a center back or a left back? What's going on here?
Yes, I am.
Yes. There's generally good atmosphere and good vibes that maybe we weren't anticipating at this point, because we just got out of a really, frankly, shit moment for being a part of the club. And we're seeing the fact that, obviously there was a moment for a lot of concern around just workplace behavior, workplace treatment at Chelsea, that Todd Bowley's come in and committed to addressing and improving that. There's been uncertainty about what's happening with some of the staff, the non-playing, non-football staff, the operational staff. There's been a lot of turnover at the top. And the fact that we're starting to see some really positive momentum, some smiles returning to faces of players, to Thomas Tuchel even looking happy again, Brandon, which is another thing.
Take a part of training. He's out there running.
Oh, look, he's trying to relive those center back days.
I mean, good for him.
Can we just quickly talk about Todd addressing the charges yesterday? Did you see the photo of Bowley with the whole team, and he has like the best stepdad energy going on?
You mean the tucked in gray T-shirt to his jeans?
And it looks like a guy who wants to be more present and communicate with people, which I think is, look, there are a lot of great things that happened during the Roman era, but the communication was not a strong suit of this group.
Oh yeah, no, I'm right there with you. We've gone preseason. He took him to LA, where he has probably his team, his home base, a lot of comforts. He's been out having beautiful dinners in Barcelona. Maybe
Todd likes to eat, my man. Todd likes to eat, and he feasts, and he just goes and gets it done.
Binders of notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here we are. So the first completion of transfers was Raheem Sterling. A little bit surprised, because it's not an area of over need unless there's players trying to exit. We did our kind of keep, sell, loan, where we did teams. I'm like, well, you have enough attackers. We definitely need defenders. I think we need to retool the midfield, but you at least have options in attack. We knew Lukaku was going to be gone. One thing that Matt Law has talked about that lacks at Chelsea is leadership, and especially if you're going to lose potentially an Azpilicueta and a Jorginho in one summer, you need to replace it. And he said that Raheem Sterling is third in line for the captaincy in the England squad. He's had to go through a lot. Sounds like he has a leadership role in Man City. He's involved in the community. He does check that box. And to hear Mason and Reece and some of the English players that we have in the team talk about him, they obviously aren't going to say anything bad, but it looks like they're genuinely excited, Nick, about Raheem, the Dream Sterling, coming into Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player who has a huge amount of pedigree, and you look at the way that he's performed at his previous stops at both Liverpool and Man City. You look at the way he's performed with England. There's a ton of potential there with him, and we've talked about the ability for Chelsea to finish some of the numerous chances that we've created over the years. That is the area in which I want to see us become a lot more efficient. So while I don't think he will play the role of provider necessarily, Dan, this is a guy that clearly comes in and helps us from the start of the season. And given the amount of rotation that I think is going to happen over the course of the year, he's probably going to get some minutes and probably going to get some rest.
Well, when you talk about the fact that Tuchel underlined he was the signing that we were after, and I think that speaks volumes to the power that Tuchel has at this very moment to guide Bowley and the Clear Lake group in terms of who they're going after, the profile players that they want, which is great to see. And to see the reception from supporters at UCLA in that first video when he was effectively introduced to the Chelsea away contingent for the first time, the way that, as Brandon kind of highlighted, all of the players within the team, whether it was Mason, Connor, even as well, have spoken about what he brings to the team, what he brings to the side. And then to see the way Raheem is talking about it too. And look, the family is such a crucial driver to all these players. And the fact that Raheem multiple times in his announcement videos talked about the fact that being back in London, being back around family, how exciting that is for him. It's possible we could get the best individual version of Raheem Sterling that has ever featured on a football pitch.
Yeah, I mean, we also are going to get some of the best photos of a player being introduced to Chelsea Football Club of all time.
Because of LA?
I mean, come on. From as far as player intro photos and videos go, those are all timers. I mean, you got him on the Sunset Strip, you got him dressed down in the LA Dodgers gear, you got him in Chavez Ravine. It's a really great marketing moment for Chelsea, and they have stuck in on some of the digital assets, let's say, during this time.
So you're saying it's better than the Rudiger announcement video?
I totally forgot about that.
We're going to talk about the Ian Matson announcement video from Burnley, too,
No,
with the Minions.
please. We're stopping that.
No.
I don't think you can stop the internet, Dan.
Brandon did
Good
try
luck.
to convince us to go to a showing of Minions, and we have declined.
Yep. He loves it.
Koulibaly, we actually just beat him into Vegas. Sounds like he is coming straight in to Las Vegas after he posted a bit of a goodbye video on social media to Napoli. Again, talk about leadership, captain of Napoli. Is he captain of the national team? He's in amongst it, if not with Senegal. You're getting two very strong leadership personalities in the locker room, one at each end of the pitch. Koulibaly, Dan, your favorite running joke is the signing that's taken 6 years, but we finally did it.
Well, look, we have a full Koulibaly megapod that we're working on. I woke up at 7 a.m. local time after about 5.5 hours of sleep to record the first two parts of that. One was someone who represents the Napoli view, one who represents the Serie A view. And in general, they are excited for Chelsea supporters. They are excited for us because of what they know he will bring to our club. And that's, I think, a testament to the type of player that we're getting. And they talked about the fact that De Laurentiis does not like to, he runs it as a net zero club. He's not investing tons of his own money, so you either need to sell a player to generate the profits you need to bring someone else in. And with no likelihood he was going to renew and being on a free transfer available at the end of the year, this was going to happen. And it wasn't going to happen again within Italy, particularly to Juventus. And so even though we made that shift, Nick, from De Ligt, who continued to rise up in price, Chelsea have shown, or the new look Chelsea have shown, that they are very comfortable targeting a class of player, a spectrum, as you were, of defenders, and saying, these are the 4 or 5 that we're going to go after. We're going to agree to terms. We're going to get down the line. And if we can't get the one, we have a couple other options that we're going to go after, which lets them be much more nimble when it comes to securing the signing.
Exactly. I mean, that's been kind of the theme of this so far, right? Is you're building up and bidding on multiple different types of players. You're agreeing personal terms, and you're understanding what the club values that player at, the opposition club, right? So you're able to go and say, all right, £50 million for Raheem Sterling, great. £33 million for Koulibaly, great. Like, we understand, like, we see the whole field, and we're going to pick that one. And I think that's a really savvy changeover that seems to be happening right now. This is a statement signing to me. It's huge. I mean, this is a player that we have been linked to, I think, across the years numerous times. He's a giant. He's a great defender, rock solid. You go watch those comp videos that are coming out, and it just makes you super excited. And if you're going to lose someone like Antonio Rudiger to Real Madrid, this is as statement of a signing as you can make in replacement of that, because he is legitimately someone that almost every club in Europe would want. And this is just that weird timing where De Laurentiis doesn't have the leverage that he would have wanted, and we know that through negotiations with him that's tough. So I'm really, really thrilled about this, and I think it brings back to me vibes when Chelsea were just signing captain level talents, right? A lot of leaders in the club, and we're getting them for fees that are not outrageous either. And so I think it's smart and savvy business.
Bully has proven that they can learn the world of soccer very quickly and get deals done. Can't forget that the academy is signing players as well.
Left and right.
The women's team have signed players.
Left and right.
So this just shows that like Bully means business and they know how to get it done. And we don't feel like they're getting rinsed like maybe a Man United are by Ajax single-handedly, completely rinsed. So what that does mean is we kind of talk about this. Sounds like Nathan Ake is now out of the picture. Yep. There's a lot of concern about a bit of a red herring tweet from Fabrizio about Levi Colwill. It sounds like it has not been decided that he wants to leave. He wants to see how preseason goes, but he understandably wants to know what kind of the plans are for the team. I think, Dan, you had put out there, we kind of figured that even if a Kimpembe or an Upamecano comes in, we're still assuming Azpilicueta is going to leave.
Yep.
That's 3 in, 3 out. It's essentially no different from Colwill. You assume that Colwill would jump ahead of Sarr in the depth chart right away. Sarr, I think I pulled it, he was at about 12 to 1,500 minutes, last season. Exactly. So Ake out. Sounds like Kimpembe, Upamecano, and Colwill are still in the line of fire. So just talking about Ake, there's a lot of fans. That was a hard pill to swallow. Paying Man City $40 million for Ake, who we let go to Bournemouth. We sold, but then we immediately ripped off Tomori, ripped off Mark Gurhey, now ripped off, who is the next one?
In terms of like Livramento?
Selling defenders just in general and center backs, right? We're like, oh, now Colwill again, just to have to buy him back later. So I think Ake had a little bit of, not his fault, but like resentment from the Chelsea fans because of the factory of departures from the defensive unit in the academy.
It was a super assumptive tweet. And I think that Fabrizio gets a lot right. And the here we goes happen.
He gets the algorithm right.
Yes. He's
does.
Very good with the algorithm. But it was assumptive as to what was going to happen next for Levi Colwill, because everything that I think that we have heard, and I don't think that we claim to be in the know, but we are at least affiliated enough with people in and around the organization to understand where he views himself, where his family views himself, and it's really about an assurance. And it's an assurance to feature and to get time. And across 60-plus games this season, as we go on to win multiple trophies and win the Champions League again, there will be minutes. Underline, there will be minutes for Levi Colwill to go out and get this opportunity. And I think in that regard, Nick, when you look at the fact that Azpilicueta's leaving, Christensen's left, Rudiger's left, there are going to be minutes. And then if Sarr moves on, there's still an opportunity to bring in not just Kimpembe, potentially Koundé, and then Levi Colwill still gets an opportunity to play and feature at a high level. And then you don't know what happens with Thiago Silva next season. This is about getting back to future planning in a way that we haven't in a very, very long time, and getting it right as it relates to adding talent where you need, but then also grooming the grooming really that talent from within. And that's what Tuchel talked about in the interview the other day, is that like it is important to lean on what Cobham is producing in addition to these signings.
Yeah, so there's like 3 things happening here, right? There is the signing part of this, which of course, if you're going to already have lost 2 defenders and likely a third, you're going to need to pick some people up. That's just like the natural order of things. Levi Colwill can't play 3 different positions in one game, right? So let's just leave it at that. But the second thing is, especially with Ake, I found myself really turned off by Chelsea Twitter this week. Like, Nathan Ake is a good player. He plays for fucking Man City. Like, he's not coming from the Championship back to Chelsea for £45 million, right? Like, that wasn't never the case. You can feel a way that you want to about him, but I think it was just shameful the way that Chelsea fans were so dismissive of him and then celebrating the fact that he wasn't coming back. He's a good fucking player. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's not the player that you want, but it's just, like, really shitty and conniving to me, and like whatever. That's just my take.
It wouldn't have happened because Tuchel wants him. And again, if you're like, oh, in Tuchel we trust, which most of Chelsea Twitter are, but then it's that exit revolving door of like sending them out, then like them buying them back later.
This is one of your former own. This isn't like
agreed.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a little different to me. But then you roll on to Colwill, which is the other thing. The minutes are there. We've talked about this, right? The minutes are definitely there, whether it's cup competitions or the inevitability that one of our central defenders gets injured for a period of time, like it was last year. Like I think this is one of those things that we all have to be smart about as broadcasters here, but then also try and like bring the fan base along to that. This player is 18 years old, right?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you're not going after a Delict or someone young in that profile shows me that maybe that is the play, right? Use him as that auxiliary player for as long as you can, or use him as a starter if someone gets injured, and just keep going. And the fact that like a Kimpembe comes in doesn't change that scenario.
Well, the other thing that you can keep in the forefront of your mind, so Ian Maatsen just went on loan to Burnley. He's going to be operating under company, which is really cool. Great opportunity to learn from there. Great opportunity to challenge for getting back into the Premier League this season in the Championship. I know he has spent time there before as well. So it's
I really hope he doesn't, by the way. I hope they don't.
I know we like to make fun of Burnley, and we do it quite frequently. But for Ian Matsen's benefit, I would be okay if Burnley got back into the Championship. That's the only reason I would be happy about it, Nick. But it did not include an option to buy. It was a straight-up loan and gives them an opportunity to come back, which shows me that there are signs that this Todd Bowley, New Look Chelsea, is thinking about a longer-term strategy versus the sell, get a buyback fee, and then basically fund their development outside of Chelsea to free up some space within our roster. This, to me, feels like it's more predicating a future state where we're going to do more of these direct loans with young players to very, very opportunistic loans to get them to a point where they need to be so that they can assist the team fully.
Yeah, no, I would say the difference between Maatsen and Colwill to me is that if you keep Emerson, which we haven't really heard anything about, to be fair, like we don't know where the left back scenario is going this year, or left wing back, depending on how your formational preferences go, then Maatsen doesn't really have a pathway, right? Colwill, if they stick with a 3, definitely has a pathway. If they stick with a 2, it becomes a little harder, right? So I really think a lot of this talk, granted to me, is focused around the formation, how Tuchel lines up, what his needs are from those roles, because we all know that pairing of 2 in the middle of a 4 is a lot different of a responsibility than having a sweeper and 2 complementary center backs on each side to clean up any messes, or if you're looking at Thiago Silva being that sweeper, having people who are a little bit more athletic around him to help cover, right? So I think all these things really matter, and it needs to be contextualized when you talk about young players, that there needs to be opportunity. I think there's minutes. It just depends on where that opportunity comes in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, obviously, to your point, one of the questions that we had built in the script was, will we see the back 4, yes or no type of situation? I think you're probably one signing too early to tell. Like, signing Koulibaly doesn't tell you one way or another. If the next defensive signing that we do, because obviously Tuchel's talked openly about it, assuming it's a center back of some sort, will tell us very quickly, is it going to be a back 4 or is it going to be a back 3? Jules Koundé, it's going to be back 3.
I think that the other thing to keep in mind is we get so caught up on this concept of formations, back 4, back 3, and Tuchel's attack and defense has some very amorphous qualities to it, where sometimes there's 5 in defense, there's sometimes 2 people or 1 person in defense, because we're so pushed up against a team that's defending 10 in total in the box plus their goalkeeper. And yes, it will dictate who gets an appearance on the pitch. But if it is a Koundé, you could expect most likely we will definitely see a 4, or what will line up as a 4, but will morph when the match actually takes place. Or if you see Kimpembe first, that to me is probably more indicative of just more that the deals are further down the line, Nick, and that we found an agreement, less so than what the actual setup is going to be.
Yeah, so 2 thoughts on this. Like, the first thought, I think, is that you know that Thiago Silva is not going to be able to play forever, even though he has.
Stop. I disagree with that.
I'm sorry.
There's no proof point currently that you are right in what you're saying.
So you're maybe planning a little bit in the future, right? But the second thing is...
The year is 2033.
And Thiago Silva has won his 8th Champions League at Chelsea. Yeah, I think the second thing that we all have to realize is that, yes, I agree, the amorphous blob is very true, especially as you move forward in the field, right? Those wing backs and those front three are a lot more amorphous to me than the back. But I think the position that dictates whether or not we play in a 4 or a 3 is the midfield. And right now, we don't have a CDM that I think is capable of sitting back and covering for maybe, let's be honest, a slower Thiago Silva and a Koulibaly that isn't 26 anymore. So, let's think about that as you move forward in your formational responsibilities. I think we're staying in the 3 this year, personally.
It'll make the transition easier because then you don't have to teach a whole new system and bring in a handful of new players. If you look at it, Kimpembe played in a back 4 exclusively last season for PSG. Sevilla with Jules Koundé, they were like 80% of the time in a back 4, but they at least did play back 3 sometimes as well. Back 3, back 5, whatever you want to call it. So, for whatever you want to say on that sense, there's some positional flexibility. I think, Nick, you have a really good point on the midfield being a big factor because I think Tuchel, and we saw Antonio Conte do this, you got to play to who you have in the team. And I think Tuchel, he would tell anyone, I can play back 3 or I can play back 4. He goes, it doesn't matter to me. I can teach those systems. And I think he's proven that he can be successful in both of those systems. What it comes down to is the team. And exactly that. When we won the Champions League under Thomas Tuchel, you had a perfectly healthy N'Golo Kante. You had a Jorginho playing out of his mind. Discipline, the back line stepped everything. I think what was it? Mendy was seeing 1 to maybe 2 shots on goal a game. It was just shut down central. The midfield was so crucial to that. And we lost it last season. Jorginho played a million matches getting to the Euro finals. He was absolutely shattered. And N'Golo Kante's injury concerns were back. We had Ruben Loftus-Cheek kind of in and out. Kovacic was on his own. We had a lot of issues there. So again, we always talk about Declan Rice. I mean, he provides so much tactical flexibility. You could maybe play with 2.5 in the back and just push everyone forward.
Well, yeah, because he can flex back into a center back role. I think the sneaky one is still Ethan Ampadu because he's had a chance to play in kind of every type of position, whether it's a center back, whether it's a wing back, whether it's in a defensive mid type of position. Yeah. I think he's one that I would look at if we don't get Declan Rice and you're looking at where do you find someone who's going to give you that tactical flexibility. Maybe. I know it's not the same in terms of the skill set and ability of Ethan currently today versus Declan in terms of a plug and play. But that's probably the one where if Tuchel is going down that route, I would think it there. But I think the point that you made, Brandon, that I maybe have a question mark around is it's going to be hard to transition to getting this team scoring 20 to 30 more goals a season in totality, and it has to go back to a defense and where we're winning 1-0, 2-0 every game. Like that has versus being as sloppy maybe as we were last year, where we started leaking goals a little bit more regularly.
Yeah, bring me back to the January to May Tuchel timeline, where you were just not giving away anything. I mean, it's impossible for the other team to win if they have 2 shots on goal and then you have Big Mendy back there saving them, right? That is, as we look to close that significant points gap in the Premier League to City and Liverpool, that I think needs to be the foundation of our identity. It's something that Chelsea can and should do, is to be impossible to play against. Then you have enough attacking talent in the front, either with the wingbacks who, Chilwell back, let's go, and Reece James obviously, and then with your Raheem Sterlings and your Kai Havertz and Pulisic, et cetera, that you should be able to score enough goals to win matches more frequently than not.
Yeah, we're going to see some interesting, I think, out-of-position movements in this preseason. We'll kind of get into that, but just to remind everyone, look, you've got Alonso, you've got Chilwell, you've got Kennedy and Palmieri, who all can play in that position.
Kennedy, let's go.
On the right side, you can maybe even throw in Malang Sarr, maybe if you really wanted to. On the other side, though, you really just have Reece James and Azpilicueta. A lot more minutes for them.
Dujon, maybe? A little Dujon Sterling in there?
He did pull up injured in the preseason training.
And I'm just talking about who's here in Vegas.
Yeah.
Now, the midfield, you talk about formation. You got Ross Barkley, Conor Gallagher, Billy Gilmore, Jorginho, Mateo Kovacic. Mason Mount is now listed as a midfielder for Chelsea. And then Harvey Vale, who's also listed as a midfielder. If you put 2 in the middle, There's not a lot of coverage amongst any of those names. Connor, obviously, being the biggest battle of the group. Ruben Loftus-Cheek not making it. So we'll have to see what happens. There's some really interesting things. I think Chalobah might have to step in. You would maybe hope that Ethan Ampadu gets some time in there, but I think we're going to see some really weird lineups, especially in the second half of these matches when the guys are only playing about 45 minutes and just go, that is a weird look, but it's an opportunity for players to shine and just to say, because they always go, I'll play wherever the coach needs me. Guess what? You're going to get a test in that because you're going into a spot you've not played in years.
I mean, look, that midfield group is so odd. From like, if you're looking at like a CDM, right? If you're looking to maybe
There
make
are none.
I mean, I think Billy and Ethan are probably your two closest, but I wouldn't categorize either one of them as like a stout CDM that's able to break up play. I think they're both passing CDMs. You know, Ethan really does get in with tackles. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, I think, Dan, if you're looking to transition to a 4, it would have to almost be a 4-2-3-1 and not a 4-3-3 with that group.
I think that we will get a chance to see in the next 3 games some of the most abstract 11s that we have ever seen Thomas
There's no
Tuchel.
doubt.
This
No
is
doubt.
Thomas Tuchel's blue phase, as it were, and he's going to get an opportunity to really explore with what it is that he puts out on the pitch for us. And I think the exciting thing is that there is this balance of talented acquisitions coming in addition to youth players that we've had a chance to see impress on loan, and players from Cobham that have grown into the first team, have secured a spot, and are finding success. How that all mixes together, that's the question for Thomas Tuchel to answer during the preseason.
I mean, I don't know. I look at that group and I'm like, can we win the Florida Cup? Yeah, I think that's
The
really,
FC Series Cup.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we really do it.
That's
you
what
know?
everyone's worried about. But that's a good point for us to stop and take our break. When we get back, we're going to talk about what we expect out of preseason, who do we think will impress the most. We're hoping to have Matt and Naz with us. So anyways, thank you to sponsors for supporting the show, especially as we sit in the Blue Wire studio,
Hi-yo.
who help us with our sponsors and our ads. Thank you to them for supporting the show, and we'll be right back.